Hello there, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for being with me today. We're back here in Tiny Zoo. This is our compact zoo with lots of foliage, lots of small enclosures, all fairly tightly packed together, and various sort of fake pathways and all that sort of thing as well. So if you've seen any of my series so far, you know what I'm talking about. So today we are here and we are going to be putting in a habitat for some clouded leopards. And as I showed you at the end of the last episode, I've already put a little bit of pathing structure in place here. So this circle of pathway is going to have the habitat on the inside of it, and then there will be lots of detailing all around the outside here, blending all of this together and making it all look nice. So the big challenge that I had, and that anyone who's played this game will know, is trying to create a round habitat. It is not an easy thing to do, especially when you see how I wanted to do the barrier to this. So yeah, it took a long time, it was a bit annoying, a bit frustrating, but I got there in the end. So my next cut, or my first cut, I will show you the barrier and sort of explain exactly why I had so many issues. There's probably easier ways of doing it to what I ended up having to do. There's bound to be techniques that make it easier, but I haven't figured them out yet. It's very annoying. So there we go. Let me move on. Let me show you what I ended up with and exactly how I got there. Okay, so our excuse me, our clouded leopards are now in. So you can see the basic idea of what I had for this habitat was that it was going to be sunken down into the ground. So that's what I've done. So you have a sort of a ledge here where the keepers can come in, and then you have a gentle slope coming down here, leading down into a sort of a basin area down here. And then the idea was I'd have some water at the bottom. I'd have a big tree, which if you've seen the thumbnail, you'll see there's a massive tree that comes up out of the middle here, and then various little platforms and things down in here as well. But the big issue I had was trying to create this barrier, and it looks really good. I'm very happy with how it looks in the end, but trying to do this sort of thing is really hard. And as you can see in this case, each panel, so you've got a wide panel here and then you have a shorter panel. And it's because I don't know how other people do this. If you've got any ideas, please let me know. But basically, I created, put this pole in place, and then you slide it directly across to the opposite side, and then you turn it, and that sometimes works perfectly. And as you spin it around, as you rotate it, it fills in the gaps perfectly. But in this case, I got to the end of the rotation and they weren't matching up. Not only were they not matching up with width, they weren't matching up circular for some reason. They were cutting in, so as I turned them, they got further in here. And then they didn't match up on the other side. It was really strange. I don't know what I was doing wrong, but it was like it wasn't rotating it perfectly in the middle, which when you've only got two posts opposite like that, they should do. I know there is a way you can do it where you have an item in the middle and you rotate all three items and then you delete the ones in the middle, but you shouldn't need to do that. With all of these things. So I don't know. So basically what I had to do was do a panel like this, rotate it, copy it over to there, and then rotate that around to fill in all of these, sort of every other panel. Then I had to go back, fill in the next shorter piece, copy that over to the other side, and then rotate that around. That still didn't help me with the top pieces. So all of these top pieces, these wooden pieces and these pieces, as you can see, these are all overlapping. In fact, most of these have two sheets of mesh in. These ones have two, I think, going up and down, or no, maybe they don't, but these top bits certainly do, and the smaller ones do, all overlapping. So but these top pieces here and these pieces, they all had to happen individually. Basically there was no way of doing them rotation wise because of the angles. It just didn't work. So it was just very long-winded, basically, getting all of that done. And then I added in the planks at the bottom as well. So it was worth it in the end, but it was a lot of hard work. And as you can see, it's still not perfect because it overlaps the pathway. But I got to this stage. I was like, no, I'm not redoing this again. People can clip through the edge if they want to, but they don't. They do walk roughly in the middle of the pathways, so it's absolutely fine. It just meant that I'd have to cover up the inside here in the end, but that's not a problem. This, obviously, the gateway was a little bit tricky as well, so I had to create this sort of double fence area like this. Not entirely happy with these bits here, but actually it kind of makes sense from a logical point of view how it's done. There's a little gap in between here, but I can't really do much about that. But yeah, I think it looks quite nice actually, having this sort of an indented doorway. So it's not the end of the world. I didn't mind it. And the shape of the actual habitat, as you can see, the leopards are in, so they've got plenty of space in there, because I was a bit afraid about the size and the shape, but actually they've got loads of room to run around in there, and they've got a nice bit of swimming space down here as well. So they're pretty happy. The staff can come in as well. They can walk right the way down into the basin here. So yeah, basically it all worked out in the end, but it was just a bit of a battle with the game to get to this point. But then once I got here, once I got here, it was pretty straightforward, and I could just start enjoying myself and creating the rest of the habitat and all the surrounds. The other thing that I did decide to do was add in another keeper hut here. So you've got one facing this way, and then one facing this way. So obviously the idea is this one is for this habitat, this one is for this one. So obviously that will get decorated later on. And I do also put a little shop in this gap here as well. Plus various stuff all around here as well, but we'll get to that in a minute. So let me load up the next save point and see what I did next. Right, so we have our centerpiece into the habitat now. As you can see, it's quite over the top. Basically what I wanted in here was the biggest tree in the game, so that's what I went with, the giant red cedar. These things in real life are phenomenally big. I mean, this looks actually quite small compared to the real life ones, but it really is the biggest tree that I could fit in here, and it just looks amazing, doesn't it? It's such a cool looking thing. So that's right down in the bottom here. You can see down in the water, just growing out, so they can still access the water and have a swim around and drink from it. And then I put in these platforms. So again, these are just made with the climbable pieces. And as you can see, they are climbable because our little clouded leopards are up on top of them, having a little nap in the shade there. So there's the idea is I wanted these at various heights, and some of them quite close, so they could sort of jump from one to the other. Some up high, some down low. So you can walk around the edge here, and you can see them at all different levels basically. So you've got some almost at eye level. You've got some here lower down. You've got one or two sort of a little bit higher up, and then one more right down the bottom here, another high one. You can see you've got the cat sleeping up on the top here, and it also means that the cats have got lots of different options of where they want to sleep. So some of them have got bedding on, some of them haven't, and it means that the cats can get away from each other as well. So yeah, lots of options. They can be in the sun, they can be in the shade. So that was the basic structure of the habitat, really. They've got everything there that they need. They've got shelter, they've got beds, they've got water, they've got a bit of climbing space, they've got a bit of roaming space. So really all I needed to do after that was put some shrubs in, just to give it a little bit more texture, and obviously enrichment items as well. And then I needed to look at all of the surrounds, and in fact it was the surrounds that took longer in this case than the habitat. The habitat itself, the barrier took a long time, but the rest of it came together pretty quickly, which is fine. I don't mind if it, not every habitat I make has to take ages for it to be good. Sometimes they can come together really quickly and still be unique and look good in the end. Obviously once you do all the surrounds, it really makes the difference as well. So yeah, I had a lot of fun doing all of these surrounds in here actually, and you'll get to see that in a minute. So there we go. So that's our giant cedar tree in the middle there. It kind of stands out in the park, doesn't it? But no, it's not over the top though actually. I mean, you've got this, is this an ash? No, it's an elm there that's almost as tall as well, and in fact these large ones we put in last time over here, the wimber trees, they're pretty big as well, so it's not too over the top. Right, let's load up the next point, shall we, and see where I go next. Okay, so I'll put the enrichment items in. So we have a large scratching post here. We have a little beach ball up on this platform. We've got a rubbing post here. We've got a cardboard box. Another little rubbing post down the bottom here. We've got another beach ball over there. What else was there? I think that might be it for the enrichment. Oh no, another cardboard box as well. You can never have too many cardboard boxes, can you? And I've also, as you can see, put some shrubs in. So not too many. Got some creosote bushes in here. We got some of these. I always forget these. The dog rose bushes. I didn't want too much. Got these little crimson turkey bush as well. So yeah, I didn't want a lot in there. I didn't want to. It was already fairly crowded, I guess, with the platforms and this giant tree. So I didn't want too much in there to hide the animals. Just enough so they look like they've got, you know, some natural stuff growing there. Also gone around the base, as you can see, with the stone here. These stone beams that I use quite a lot, just covering up that pathway that was sticking underneath the barrier, so that goes all the way around the edge. Right, so then I started working over here, and I had this big area and I wasn't too sure what to do, and this is what I came up with. So instead of flower beds, because I've done a lot of flower beds and I wanted to do something a bit different, I decided to make it into a large seating area. So first I had to get some more pathways in so that I could fit some of these benches down. So it's kind of tricky, but basically you can see I sort of crisscrossed pathways as much as I could underneath here, just to try and allow me to get these benches where I wanted them. I then had the issue because this pathway came right the way along here and it just didn't blend together nicely, so I just took the concrete here right up to cover up this and blend in with this this flower bed along the side here, which I think looks really nice actually. It just brings the two areas together, doesn't it? You know, they don't need to be separated by another pathway. So that's cool. I was pretty happy with that. At this end over here, there's a bit of a step here, so I just put one of these little curbs down, which I kind of like, just warning people that there's a step. This is something that happens a lot, certainly in the UK here, where you can sue people if you fall over a step. So you know, you'll often highlight where there's a step like that, just to give people a bit of warning that there's a step so they don't fall over. I then wanted to put in some brickwork to separate this pathway, because I did want this pathway to be separate from this one, just to create a sort of a separate area. I know I've used the same seats, so that's kind of blending the theme together, but I did want it to be distinctly, you know, a different seating area to this little bit over here. Excuse me, I just need to cough. Oh, sorry about that. So yeah, so I went with some little brick walls here. Like I said, I put a couple of shops in here. They will be closed and the vendors will be sacked, because obviously I'm not actually going to open this park anytime soon, so there's no point in having vendors here. But yeah, so we've got a Cosmic Cow milkshakes and a Cosmic Cow ice creams in here. Then I had this tricky little bit at the end here where the paths came together. So this is what I built. Just wall pieces here, and then this will be a little raised flower bed, and then this area here next to the shops is becomes a little sort of storage area for some bits and pieces from the shop, which ends up looking really nice actually. Most of this here was done with these new pieces, the non-grid pieces, which is really helpful. Yeah. So these shorter bits of brick wall are really helpful. They just allow you to fill in smaller gaps rather than having to go with the full length grid pieces, because that little gap there I couldn't have done before the last DLC where we got these extra pieces, because everything had to be that long. So yeah, so that's it's a very good addition to the game, that one. The main reason I use this brickwork is because, again, I've used it over here, so it kind of blends everything together, you know. Even though it's separate, I want it blended together, which doesn't really make sense, but I think you probably understand what I'm talking about. If everyone can ever understand anything I'm talking about, let's be honest. I do talk a lot of rubbish, don't I? So this ground, this was quite complicated actually, trying to get this all covered up properly. So the main piece was quite easy, but then I had to do this all around the edge to kind of you know, blend it in, make sure it looked nice and curved along here. I still wasn't happy with it, so I ended up putting some more walls along here as well. Obviously I've still got this to decorate and this one to decorate, and a bit more foliage work to be done in here because it ended up being a little bit too exposed and open, so I needed some more foliage as well. So yeah, still quite a bit to do. Actually, did I even mention that I put this one on the end here? So you've got one of these giant, what is it, a ghost gum tree, that's the one, that I put on the end here as well. That was mainly because of the way that the floor looked here. If I just move that out the way, I had this awkward little area here that I couldn't really cover in and make it all blend together nicely, so in the end I just thought, yeah, let's stick a tree in there, and that looks really nice actually as a corner piece there. So yeah, I was more than happy putting another tree in there. You know, that's how I roll in this zoo. If you've got a gap, put a tree in it. Brilliant. Okay, so let me move on once more. So our habitat itself is basically done now, so we're really working on this area here. Oh yes, I also extended the pathways out here with more of my nice little triangles that I do, ready to spread out into more areas. So I don't do anything around here in this episode because that will wait for when I start doing more habitats out in these areas. But yeah, that habitat itself is basically done now, and I really like it. It's simple and effective, as I often say, because it does exactly what I wanted it to do. And there's our little Clouded Leopard having a scratch. Cool, so let's move on. Let's load up the next save point, shall we, and see what I did next. So I made a bit of progress over this side with our shops. Again, I wanted to continue the brick theme, so that's what I've used as the building. And the asphalt roof. Again, this is something that I use a lot with the restaurants or the keeper huts, sort of continuing the same theme, but I wanted to do something a bit different here, so I extended the roof right out here to create a little canopy, so when people are queuing here they can get out of the sun or out of the rain. I think that looks good, supported with these nice thick wooden beams. Then the front I decorated, got a couple of signs here. I thought they looked kind of nice, just telling you what you can buy at each stand. And then just a bit of wooden framework here, nothing too fancy, just something a bit different. A couple of nice signs, one on the top there, one on the side. So yeah, just simple, but it's you know, it does what it needs to do. A couple of signs as well, so you've got these freestanding ones here, so that would be for anyone coming through here, just to grab their attention, so you can read the menu before going over and buying stuff from there. And then I've got one just here by the tree as well, that you can have a quick read of what's for sale as you approach. On these walls I added in some lights, so you've got these little lamp posts here on all of the posts now as well, which are really nice. I like them, they're very grand, aren't they, which I kind of like. So maybe a little bit over the top. I did consider sinking them down into the post, but they looked a bit weedy then. Actually, let me just show you what I mean. Because I did think they were a little bit big and over the top, but if you sink them down like this, I don't know, that just doesn't look strong enough then, does it? It looks even weedier. So yeah, it's either sort of too big or too little. You kind of need it to be how it's designed with this big fat base there, so you know, that's fine. And as you can see, the keepers unfortunately do clip through here because it overlaps with the pathway, but that really doesn't bother me at all. That's not something that I'm worried about in this game. It's just a minor issue. Right, then we come along here, and like I said, I made, oh yes, I put another sign on this side of the building as well. I made this area just like a little storage area, so a few pallets, some sacks, and a few crates of goods there. Not really something that you actually get in that bit of the zoo, or so, you know, it'd probably have a little gate or something on it, but you know, there's only so much you can do. And there's only so many backstage items in the game as well, so but yeah, it fills the gap. It's a little bit of realism, isn't it? So I kind of like it. And then I made this flower bed here, so you got one of these lovely big, I think it's a date palm. Let me just check that. Yep, that one's the date palm. So you got that in there, which I really like. And then this one here, again, this is something that I love doing. These ponytail palms are fantastic, but they're often too big. But I just love these tufty heads, so I often do this. You just sink them right down into the ground, and just have them poking their lovely fluffy heads up. And I just think they look really cool like that. So yeah, that's all I've done in that bed, just the 2 plants, but it fills the bed up really nicely. Yeah, I like it. Looks good. Then I continued the wall along the back here, so you've got another post with another light, and then I had this gap here and I needed to do something, so I just continued the wall to another post and another light, and just made a little flower bed along the back here with some soil and a few little palms and ferns in there. Got this lovely tree fern sort of leaning out at a bit of an angle there across the pathway. I had one tiny little bit of this pathway here. If you look, I put a nettle here, and the reason that is there because look, you've got this tiny little bit of nothingness here that I couldn't get rid of. I couldn't even move this over just that little bit. It just didn't work with all the angles and everything. So I just thought, you know what? Yeah, let's just stick a little nettle in there, like it's just growing like a weed, and that just covers up that little bit of exposed ground there. I like little things like that, though. It's a nice little detail, a little bit of realism. I also had a gap here, so again, I put another tree, another one of these ghost gums in, but a smaller one to this one. I didn't want it to look overcrowded, so you've got a smaller version of that growing in another plant pot there. And then coming over here, I've just started work on this, so this isn't finished yet. But again, I've used the brick and the asphalt, but I've gone with a completely different look to this building. This is a completely functional building. It's not for the public consumption at all. It's just a couple of keeper huts. So this is it's a bit different, isn't it? It's got this sort of steep inclined drop here, which you do with these pieces. So these are designed as trimmed pieces. You know, they're kind of meant to be single layers like this where they overhang, but if you put them in a row like this, if you shrink the grid size and the grid height and everything down to the right proportions, you can make these nice sharp drops, just to give you a completely different angled roof. So that looks pretty cool, I think. Obviously I do a lot more decorating on this because it does look a bit of an odd shape at the moment, but yeah, so I make it look good in the end, I promise. And then I do a bit more work here because I wasn't entirely happy with how exposed this edge was here. Just didn't blend together very nicely, I didn't think. So I do some more walls along here so you don't get any of these angled corners showing. So I think I put walls sort of from here and along to here. Actually all the way along to here, I think. So you end up with just sort of an entranceway there, more walls here as well. So you end up with an entrance here and an entrance there, I think, or possibly here. I can't quite remember. We'll find out, shall we? Instead of me just telling you what I'm going to do, why don't I show you? Let me just load up. I think there might be just the one more save point for this episode. So let me load it up and we'll take a look at the finished result. And here we are with our finished habitat and surroundings. I'm really pleased with how this one turned out. So this building here, like I said, it needed a little bit more detail. I didn't give it too much because I wanted it to be fairly bland. It is just a keeper hut building at the end of the day. So I just added in a little wooden support there and a light, giving it a bit of water grating along the bottom. And then I put a flower bed on the end here. Just to fill in the gap really, but also just to cover up this big blank wall here. This end I put in the fence. I've connected it up to this building here with this same brickwork and the same lights. Managed to get a bin on the end there as well, just thought it needed a little something there. Then like I said, I brought these brick walls here, so you end up with just a gate there and a gate there, so it just looks a little bit more organized, you know, and I didn't like how this all blended together, so that I just think it looks much nicer like that. You can still see everything, so if you're sitting in here having your lunch, you can still see over there perfectly, but it just means that you're just slightly separated from the pathway there. So yeah, I was pretty pleased with how that turned out. Put some nice lights along each side of it as well. And a couple of grates. Unfortunately that still happens, you still get the keepers walking through the walls. Yeah, so some more grates on the floor here for the water to drain away through. And I had a gap in the middle here. In fact, it wasn't a gap, I wanted to put a tree in here. So I took away one of the benches that was here, and I have put this big umbrella tree in here. And a bench, in fact, that could fit there looking at the bonobos. Because it was a little bit, you imagine, without that, let me see that it was quite open, and that is not what I want in this zoo. This zoo is all about being quite enclosed, isn't it? So I just thought it needed that in there, that lovely big umbrella tree. Plus it gave shade for people sitting under here having their lunch as well. So it worked out perfectly actually to do that. A couple of bins, so we've got a bin here, got another bin under here as well. So I think that was all that I did in that cut. That was basically it. So this whole area now is very different to how it used to look, and I'm really pleased with it. It is still quite open, but I like that. In some zoos, even tiny zoos, need a bit of space like this where people can come in, buy some food, and just have a wander around and sit down and chill out. So it's really good, and the habitat itself I'm very pleased with. I mean, if you were stood here, look, you can see the leopard down here having his afternoon snooze. I think it's a really interesting habitat actually. I'm really impressed with the idea for it, having it sort of sunk down into the ground like that. I think it works really well. Got a little media board up here as well. I think I put one around this side somewhere too. Yes, I've got one here as well. So yeah, there we go. That is our clouded leopard habitat. Let me know what you think. I'm really happy with it. I think it's nice and different. It's unique. It's something that I hadn't done before, and I think it's turned out really well. But please do let me know if you've enjoyed the episode. Please do hit the like button for me. I'd really appreciate that. It just helps the videos to get out into the world a bit more. And hopefully you can join me again in the next episode. I will give you a spoiler. The next episode is over here. I've already recorded. In fact, no, I haven't recorded it, but I've already constructed it, and it's in this gap just here. And it is what are they? Hang on, I want to say Colombian capuchin. Is that right? Let me get this right. Colombian white-faced capuchin monkeys. There we go. So we are going to be building a small habitat in this area here for them in the next episode. But for this episode, that is going to be it. So thank you once again for joining me today. Hopefully I'll see you again very soon. Until then, take care. Bye for now.